Okay, we're going to get started. My name is Don Bowman. My company is Agilicus. And today we're going to talk about mean time to repair operations. So, remote access, zero trust, how you can improve the efficiency of your business, the uptime of your equipment, and do it in a safe and secure fashion so that cybersecurity woes don't become your 2026. Let's get started. So, today I'm going to discuss a number of different things. The first I'm going to talk about is the generic concept of remote operations. What's driving it? Why is it going to accelerate? There's a skill set gap. There's some SaaSification. Systems are getting more complicated, more interconnected. And we're going to talk about the different perspectives of the different players. The operator, I own the plant, I own the risk, I own the downside. System integrator, I'm just responsible for getting it going. I'm not there afterwards. A remote operations company, I'm responsible for ongoing operations, but I do it for a lot of different customers. And they each have different perspectives on things, and they value security, efficiency, ease of use in different fashions. So the concept of managed remote operations. So, mean time to repair, you can view it as either a break fix thing, something's bad, let's get in and fix it, or you can view it as a predictive maintenance thing. I'm going to get in there every month and I'm going to do something to prevent things from going bad. Both are important, obviously. And what's happening is systems are getting more complicated. Up until the 1960s, there was no computers on the scene, and you might have mechanical timers and so on, which were complicated, I suppose. But once we started getting automation in there and SCADA and things of that nature, we really saw an acceleration in the complexity inside any process plant, whether it be wastewater treatment, whether it be manufacturing. And the number of programmable logic controllers and the amount of logic in each is going up and up and up. And the reason is we're trying to bring more efficiency out of the process. Rather than just having a thermometer on the wall wired to an oven and sort of being close, now you're down to microsecond level control between them. And we see that in some environments where it's very distributed. Distributed control systems obviously are a thing, but they can be quite disparate. You might have a remote pumping station or lift system into your wastewater plant that's quite a distance away, and it's carried over a wide area network, cellular or fiber. And there's more sensors involved. So what's happening is it's getting more complicated. And as that happens, in the same time, the systems are getting more interconnected. You're starting to see things that are requiring some sort of internet access or SaaS. Maybe this new widget you bought has a license manager and the license manager is only internet enabled. Or maybe you're going to an off-net database or historian. And as a consequence, your internet access becomes more critical, but also for cybersecurity, you don't want any internet access, and those things become at fighting with each other. What's happening is everybody's going towards the same goal: efficiency, faster, better, cheaper. I want my team to spend less hours to get more outcome. And you're seeing predictive analytics, et cetera. So that's really what we're seeing as the industry trend. As part of that trend, the more complicated things get, the more it exceeds one individual's skill set. So you don't have one person that has the breadth to know all of the systems and all of the things in it. So when you're doing a bring up of a new plant, you might need an HMI engineer, distinct of the PLC engineer, distinct of the control system, distinct of the network. And you've got four different things. And now that nearly guarantees you need remote access because they won't all be on site during that. At the same time this is happening, and this is not an accident, a lot of industries are moving, I call it SaaSification, but they're moving to subscription. In my lifetime, we went from not having CDs to having CDs that you bought in a store to not having CDs and music as a service. People don't, go to the record store anymore. But we're seeing that with other things. So tractors. As a kid, I grew up on a farm. We had a tractor. It didn't have electronics. You could start with a screwdriver. That was it. It had lights. But today, John Deere is very different. They've gone to war with the American farmer. You can't buy a John Deere tractor without 5G interconnect, and you're not even allowed to repair it. And they're doing that because they want to get an ongoing revenue stream. So this is less about a technical need and more about an economic issue. And sometimes they're even shipping things before they're done. Famously, we see that with Tesla. Here's your car. We're going to write the software for it next year. But you see it also with games and things like that. And we're seeing it too in industrial automation. It might be at the high level in level 3 and level 4 of the Purdue model with the historian, but it could be down at the bottom. Oh, this sensor, we're not quite sure how to tune it. We'll calibrate it on site. The side effect of this is a lot more people, A lot more systems at a lot more locations are involved in making you successful. And as you get more and more managed operations, you're going to have to get your head around historian as a service. They're going to have to meet your service level agreement in order to do it. The other one that's happening is obviously big data. AI has sort of taken the spotlight in the last couple of years, but big data has been sort of in everybody's shiny eyeballs for the last decade or so. And we've moved from monthly compliance reports that clipboard, fill it in, et cetera, compile, spreadsheet, into it's a millisecond value driver. You want to get the absolute minimum amount of chemicals put into the process. You want to have the exact, absolute maximum amount of something out. You're not doing it by looking at your data at the end of the quarter and deciding what to do. You're doing it by millisecond. In manufacturing, just-in-time manufacturing, you want the supply chain to be as close to zero as possible, so you don't have extra stuff sitting in your, input inventory or output inventory. And therefore, as you get more and more manufacturers working together in contract manufacturing, now their ERP systems are tied together, SAP and so on. So we're starting to see more and more big data here. But the other thing this affects in the process side of the business is now they're starting to have a desire to get what was formerly only either real-time data, the sensor sent to the PLC made a decision, like a limit switch, or things that were just sort of historical in nature, the historian, how much chlorine did we put in the water last month? The idea that now we're going to need to get that to some third party in the cloud, it's not too likely that in the process environments that I deal with, that they're going to bring the cloud to the edge. There is a concept called edge computing, but you've been in a water treatment plant. Nobody's coming in there with a big rack full of expensive disks and a SAN and fiber channel and so on, because it's going to rust. And nobody knows how to manage at the edge. They don't have UPSs, they don't have data centers, they don't have cooling, et cetera. So it really is moving towards interconnected rather than local data. And so as a consequence, you see these different roles. Um, you see I've sort of split these down into a few, but I operate. I own the infrastructure. The risk is ultimately mine. This is my plant. And my team owns the insurance on it, and it's my customers at the end of it that if it blows up, bad things are going to happen. Their sewer's going to back up or whatever. People can't swim on their beaches. This is my issue, and you care about very specific things. I'm regulated under these regulations. I have this service level agreement. I have this insurance. I manage, this is your partner. This is the coming back to the predictive maintenance or the mean time to repair. You may outsource some or all of your operations to a partner and they manage part of it under contract. They might do the entire thing. You might just own the capital and they run it all for you. Certainly that is how some of our customers operate. In some cases, they run parts of it. They may have the water license, but they don't run the rest of it, or they may run the backups or something like that. But anyway, that person, they don't work for you, they work with you. And this is a key distinction I'm going to talk about in a minute around a technical concept called identity and authentication. How do they sign in a safe way? Because they are a person, but they are also a company. And what you don't want to do is to create an account for the company and then share it with all the people, because when the people come and go, they never change that account. But anyway, I manage is one of the key roles here. There are other roles that are a little bit less important from the mean time to repair side, but I design. This is the engineering company that built it, the architects. They did the blueprints, they specified the equipment, they designed it to be managed in a certain way. There's your system integrator. I build, a panel shop or something like that. They might be doing the PLC programming, and that overlaps with operations, usually during the warranty period, but often as a break fix type thing. You call up your integrator and say, this pump is getting really old. Can we change the startup time of it? And they go in and reprogram the VFD for it. Um, I support. This is a very specific demographic. You see it a lot more on the IT side with this concept called a managed service provider, an MSP. And that's what they do. They provide support as a service, the help desk, so that your staff that have inadvertently put their keyboard in the dishwasher, they can help them out. But they are a break fix thing. They don't come to your site. And then there's I manufacture. So the manufacturer, you can get involved with the manufacturer or their representatives when there's a problem. that we're trying to figure out is the system bad and we need to RMA it or something else. But they're not usually involved in the actual deployment, but they've created systems that are capable of being used in a certain fashion. So they all have an interrelated ecosystem of roles here um, on it. So they have different challenges and perspectives. So as an operator, you care about a couple things. So first of all, risk. You ultimately own the risk. If something bad happens, all those other people are going to go away and say, "Oh, it's terrible that happened to you." One of my favorite, sayings is, you think about breakfast, bacon and eggs. The chicken was involved, but the pig was committed. And that's what the operator is. The operator is committed. You have no choice. You can't absolve yourself of the risk or the downside contractually, because no matter what, it's your name on the door. And if something goes wrong, it's your name in the news. You can't credibly stand up there and say, yada, 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 but we had this external company that was doing this stuff. And I'm like, the news isn't going to say external company does bad thing. The news is going to say bad thing happened to local utility. And then the other one is I manage. And what their perspective is, they manage a lot of different customers. So, and they don't want them to be different. They want all their customers to be the same. And they view security as a hassle or a barrier. Look, I got 10 people in my team, we got 100 customers. Every time there's a problem, I can't be trying to figure out how to do multi-factor authentication for customer A versus customer B. I can't be doing that. Uh, I can't have them all different. And I hate the idea that they have different accounts for each and multi-factor for each, and some of them want to use a VPN. VPNs are terrible for them. They got 10 customers with 10 different VPNs, but they've only got one laptop. They can't install 10 VPNs on it, so what are they going to do? So they might create virtual machines or whatever. What they want to do is the opposite of what you want to do. You want to know exactly who's doing what when, your way, and they want all the customers to be the same, and it doesn't matter who in their team does it. What ends up happening is identity, who that person is, connectivity, how I get there, and policy become a battleground rather than a common ground. So it ends up being something that you fight over. I want it better, I want it worse, this and that. And you get these acrimonious discussions about backdoors versus pragmatism. Oh, let's just put a little cellular modem in there. Nobody will know. We'll just wire it into the closet and call it a day. Oh my God, if that happens, my auditor will kill me, etc. Anyway, you end up with this problem where the two people that should be working together with a common objective see this area as an unaligned objective. And I got a fix for that, because this is a commercial webinar after all. So talk about the identity battleground. So this is the one thing that I feel very proud of at Agillicus, that I believe we have fixed this problem in such a way that both parties get what they want. And it comes to identity. Identity is who you are. So who you are in a technical sense, you see as your sign in. And for most of you in the webinar today, in a work environment, you're either using Google Workspace or Microsoft Office 365, and that's your identity. And you sign in and you view it as your email. You sign in with your email address. And all of the systems you work with, you sign in that way, except some of them you don't, because they're not single sign-on. But people work for companies. Companies attest the identity of their staff via something called authentication. Azure Active Directory, you might have heard that term, but that's what that is. It's authentication. And it's a common but unrequired and bad practice to force partners to create new identities. So you end up creating a contractor one at their company account in your identity system. The problem there is, first of all, those accounts become shared. So instead of it being Dawn, it's company A. And 5 people work for company A, so they all share that account. And what happens is one of them leaves or is fired or something happens. They have a gambling problem and the mob comes and forces them to drop the path, whatever it is. They wander off, but nobody ever changes that password until one day something bad happens to you, the operator. So you don't want that. And this is what we've solved at Agillicus. Those people working for those external companies, they can sign in with their own company's attestation. So I sign in as Don at Agillicus, you sign in as Jane at your company, and that way our respective companies manage the HR. If we leave the company, we're removed. As an operator, you own the next layer. So that's the who. Who are you? The next layer is how, is what. What are you allowed to do? Which is called authorization. So you're not actually reducing the security by doing this, you're increasing the security, but you're also increasing the ease of use, which is allowing you to get a better mean time to repair because people can get into your system faster. Remember what I mentioned, that company that manages things for you or supports you, they don't want to have 100 customers with 100 different ways. They just want to sign in like they do everything else. And signing in with their Azure Active Directory, their email, it's so much better for them. Single sign-on becomes a shared ID. So in this case, um, it's much better, much more secure. And from a regulator standpoint, you're starting to see the regulators step in here. The EPA has taken ownership in this area, and you have to use multi-factor and so on. Local accounts, password on system are never changed, widely known. We all know this is the case. So we fixed that by making it single sign-on externally. Uh, Convenience goes down, security goes down. If you make it harder to log in, it's harder to get things done. The time to repair is worse. And then you start to see problems like Oldsmar Water, where the TeamViewer was used as a backdoor. By fixing this, we've made all this go away, and it's easier for everybody. They get their job done faster, and it's cheaper. And it's more secure. So the industry as a whole calls this zero trust. And there's three columns of zero trust: who, what, and how. The who problem is, who are you? If I can identify you down to as an individual rather than as a shared account, then we got that solved. I'm Don and Agilicus. The authorization problem is what you're allowed to do. And what should not be everything. You're not allowed to do everything you want on the network. I have read-only access to HMI2. Okay, great. So if you get that down in a fine-grained fashion so that an individual system and an individual user with an individual role, you get the second thing solved. And the third is called how. How do I get you there? And in the past, people would say either get there via vehicle, get in your car and drive there, or they would say, install a VPN, or they would say, hey, I got this jump box, you're gonna use TeamViewer. But we don't need any of those things. We've got a system that works over the public internet that allows that fine-grained everything, but that's how you get there. So I think about this problem as a shared custody, shared destiny. Earlier, I talked about this battleground. You have two companies that work together, but against each other. And they view some problems from opposite perspectives. Security is good, security is bad. But we don't need that. We actually, by making authentication be this common ground and making it easy for people to sign in, and then allowing you to do authorization based on that, you've unlocked that Gordian knot. And the operator's problem as vendor access is the flip side is customer management. They both say, this is easy. My team just signs in as themselves. We're good to go. So the real advantage here is it's secure for me and simpler for all. So the operator says this is more secure. I've got multi-factor check. I've got strong identity check. I've got authorization on a per resource basis check. I've got an audit trail for everything check. I know exactly who did what when check, and I control it. The company that manages you says, my team gets what they need when they need it to get their job done for the minimum amount of time. Boom. That's how you get the best mean time to repair. There's no VPN to install, so you don't have to worry about that laptop having too many VPNs, and it's just a lot simpler. And it even works in an air-gapped environment. So why does this reduce your risk? Well, shared accounts are gone. You don't have to worry about HR churn at your partners. Somebody leaves their team, they remove them through identity system naturally. Even if you don't get notified, it's all good. Overbroad access is gone. There's no blast radius of everything in the company. It's now a single system. You've got an audit trail, who did what when. You can enforce multi-factor. Everybody wins. It's faster, better, simpler, cheaper. And the implementation is way simpler than people think. A lot of people think, oh my God, this complicated thing that Don's talking about, we're going to need to re-architect the world and yada, yada, yada. And I got this old nasty old Profinet thing or something. You don't need to. This is an identity-aware proxy. There is no network changes, no architectural changes required. It just automatically is integrated to Google Workspace, um, Microsoft Azure Entra, Okta, those types of identity systems. It's an identity-aware proxy. It just goes in. There's no changes on any of your PLCs or HMI or Historian, any of those things. And it just gives you this simple interface, a web interface here, a happy user there, a repaired system here. And it fixes those challenges. So you own the risk, security is important, et cetera, et cetera. It fixes that. So now you can dictate to the vendor, use this system and not be worried that they're going to push back and say, there's no way for me to do that. It turns complexity into simplicity. You no longer have to trust that people are doing the right thing. You can actually control it. And from the management company standpoint, it fixes their problem. They don't have to worry about every customer being different. They don't have to worry about having a VPN here and TeamViewer there. They don't have to worry about shared accounts or non-shared accounts, or that you might implement multi-factor and break their workflow. They get their convenience, you get your security. Both of you are happy. And for me, well, I get some cash because I sell some product to you. But that's the value to our customers we provide is we increase your security, we increase your efficiency, and we create a very seamless end user experience. So with that, thank you very much for your time today. That's my pitch on how you're going to decrease mean time to prepare in a industrial control system environment. You're going to do it with zero trust, single sign-on, seamless access from anywhere for anyone, but the right person, the right thing, the right role, high security, high simplicity. They get their job done. Everybody wins. Thank you so much. My team will reach out to you after this webinar. My name is Don Bowman. My company is Agilicus. We make secure remote access for industrial control systems.